Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and if you'd like to help us design our new website, I invite you to visit twit.to/navtest. We've got 8 quick questions we'd like to ask you that will help us make the navigation easier to use. That's twit.to/navtest. Thanks a lot.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by iFixit. You can fix it, and iFixit makes it easy with free step-by-step repair guides, high-quality replacement parts, and all the tools you'll ever need. For $10 off your purchase of $50 or more, go to ifixit.com/twit and enter the code KNOWHOW at checkout. And by Squarespace. Squarespace recently launched their latest version of the platform, Squarespace 7, which has a completely redesigned interface, integration with Getty Images and Google Apps, new templates, and an incredible feature called Cover Pages. Try the new Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter the code KNOWHOW at checkout to get 10% off. On this episode of Know-How, the future, in one word, plastics. Also fixing your Wi-Fi again, and Quadcopter Integration. Don't drink that. Welcome to Know-How. It's the Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I'm Father Robert Ballasar.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
And for the next hour or so, we're going to show you some of the projects that we've been working on so you can take it home and be a weekend warrior geek.
That's right.
Stuff.
You can fight all your other geek friends with the knowledge.
You could surprise them. You could fill their knowledge holes with your no-hole knowledge.
That's right. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Yeah. But before we get to that, we got a little science here. A little engineering.
Yeah. So this is a pretty cool story that you picked up because 3D printing is pretty big. It's getting more and more popular. But now we're going to space.
Now, the promise of 3D printing has been the ability to fast prototype things, right? I mean, as long as you've got the design and you've got the raw materials, you could create something, maybe a part that you need.
Right.
Well, there are a couple of things that are in the way of having that be really possible because the materials aren't yet as strong as we need them to be.
Right. There was a few episodes back where someone asked if they could 3D print props for quadcopters. You kind of need those to be a little bit more structurally sound.
You could probably 3D print the frame for a quadcopter, but the prop undergoes so much stress when it's spinning around at thousands of times per minute that it would just disintegrate.
Right.
However, thankfully, we've got a space program because they're taking 3D printing to a whole new level. This story comes to us straight from NASA. Just 2 weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving, they 3D printed their very first part on the International Space Station. Now, the print is the result of the International Space Station 3D printer project. Not very imaginative with the naming.
No, but yeah, that's not the important part.
Exactly. It was from NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. Now, the printer was created by a California-based company called Made in Space, and I think we have a video that we can play that shows what they're using, the kind of setup that they've got. Because obviously 3D printing in space is a little different than
no gravity.
No
so
gravity.
You got to take that into consideration.
Right, and you also have to worry about pieces flying off into, into the very hostile confines of a space station.
Right.
They've got this setup that uses a very nice, very precise printing head along with a sealed environment. They set this thing up back at the beginning of November. It was installed on November 17th. They did their first test print on November 17th, and they sent the images from that first test to the ground. Now, the ISS Space Station 3D printer team looked at that data, and then they sent back instructions to the ISS to realign the printhead, which, as we both know, calibrating a 3D printer...
It's a pain in the butt.
Oh, my goodness, yes, it's horrible. Now, the second test was done on November 20th, and the results were actually good. Everything lined up. So, on November 24th, ground control sent commands to the printer, so they're controlling the printer, and it created a spare part for the 3D printer.
That's cool.
Yeah. Now this is very cool science because they're finding out that trying to 3D print in 3D in very near zero G gravity.
Right. There is gravity. It's just
there's
very
gravity.
low.
Yeah, it's very low. You're just always falling.
Right.
And trying to do it in a place where you have to worry about any remnants wandering off into critical components of the ISS. There are some challenges that they had to overcome, so that technology will eventually make its way back into our printers, which is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's not the first time that space research has, trickled down to other cool things. But I thought it was pretty interesting that they mentioned in the article that it actually bonds better in space than on Earth.
They totally didn't expect that. They thought, if anything, it's going to be harder to compress the layers because here we rely on gravity to pull the layers down against each other so that you get a strong bond.
Right.
They found that in zero G, the part was actually sticking to the tray. They had trouble getting it off the tray because in microgravity, the what do they call that? The material that comes out, it's like plastic.
Oh, the ABS?
Yeah, that it actually the bonds, the chemical bonds that it makes, the molecular bonds it makes, are stronger.
Yeah.
So you could make much stronger parts in zero G than you can in regular gravity.
Right, and it seems to me that having a 3D printer in space or on a space station would be pretty handy, considering if you break something or you need a part for something, you're probably not going to get another one, sent up anytime soon.
Right.
So having something like that on hand would help a lot.
And I see that as a natural progression. So you go from a place of necessity, a place like the ISS where
they're isolated.
They're isolated, and a spare part's going to cost you a couple $1 million because you got to put it on a rocket, right? So it's obviously there you want the ability to make a part, a hard to find part, even if it's not the same strength as the original part, something that will make do until you can get a part, right?
Right.
But once you've got that technology down and it starts trickling into the printers that we can actually buy or make ourselves, then you get into a situation where it's not just places where you absolutely need it, but places where you just want it quickly.
Yeah.
Or I mean, the dream is to make a self-sufficient community where you don't have to have that 10,000-mile supply chain. You don't have to buy a part from China. You just get the design and hit print.
Well, like the problem I'm experiencing right now is ordering a part for my drone, and it's shipping from China. And I saw it say it was shipping January 15th. I was like, that can't be right. That must mean December 15th. It's
print.
Like,
No, print the part.
Just print it here. That would be great.
I mean, imagine, I'm sure Amazon will be on this. They get to the point where you buy a design, and it's like, buy it now. No, really, buy it now. Buy it now, and it'll print over here.
Or the self-replicating 3D printers.
No.
3D printer that builds a 3D printer.
We get the Borg, man. No. You've gone too far, Brian.
Too far. Sorry.
Back up. Simmer down now. Now, let's go ahead and talk about something that's a little easier than 3D printing, because both of us have played with 3D printers, and
yeah. They can be frustrating.
They can be frustrating. I mean, it's not just aligning. I mean, imagine this. So every time we wanted to move the 3D printer, if you move it, you got to realign it. You got to recalibrate it, because otherwise the print head will be off. And nothing ever lined up right.
Something always seemed to break.
Yeah. And even if you got it perfectly aligned and you never moved it, a lot of the software is not super user-friendly.
No. I've worked a lot with AutoCAD and some like SolidWorks and stuff, and it still wasn't.
It still wasn't there.
No.
You're just looking, going, no, I'm done.
It's like, ugh, yeah.
Well, how about this? Would you like the ability to fast prototype stuff, but without the 3D printer?
Yes.
How about just like using your hands, like lumps of clay?
I am used to doing that.
Okay, well then we got something for you. This stuff is called Instamorph. Now this is, 34 ounces of it. You can buy this on Amazon for about $40. This has become very, very popular in the cosplay and the modeling community. Because the idea is these little plastic pellets, if you go to the overhead, these little plastic pellets actually
look delicious.
It's hard to see. There you go. They look like little rice grains, right?
Yeah.
Well, they soften up when you expose them to hot water, temperatures of 150 or more. I like 160 degrees. And then you can mold them. It becomes like clay. It's malleable.
Whoa.
Yeah, so in fact, let's show you a little bit of a little something. So here's a demonstration. So here's some hopefully hot enough water.
We might have to get some more hot water.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and take some, this is just a little bit of Instamorph. So when you pour it into this water, what's going to happen is you're going to start to see it turn transparent. So it's going to go from white to this clear color, and when it becomes the clear color, it means that it's ready for you to mold. Now the cool thing about this is you can use it like clay.
That's cool.
Yeah, so once it becomes malleable, you can cut it, you can squish it, you can stretch it, and you can form it into any shape that you need in order to make the form that you're trying to make. Wow. This is so much faster than 3D printing because it's no longer I have to make the design and then print it and then reprint it when the design's not right. This is all you just like when you were in kindergarten.
Yeah, as long as you're good at making Play-Doh and clay things, you should be all right.
I've got one we started a while back. It might have actually cooled off, but I want to see. Let's do this. And then we got to drain the excess water. Okay, so now this is a little here. Go, you take this.
Okay.
Go and start molding that.
Oh, whoa. That's crazy.
Here.
Ew.
Right. So what? Yeah, it'll start becoming like a putty. This is a little too cold, so we didn't get quite up to the operating temperature. But but again, the nice thing about this is you can cut it, you can slice it, you can squish it, and I have seen some absolutely gorgeous designs made with Instamorph. Some people use it for masking. So what you do is you make a mask of someone's face, and then you can mold what you want on the outside. So it's great for cosplay because you can get, yeah, there you go.
This really does feel, it's like clay. It feels kind of like clay, but just it doesn't break apart as easily.
And that's not even at the right temperature. So that's still a little bit too cold. But when it cools down, oh, actually, Burke's bringing us
we got
more
hot water coming in.
Wait,
I think Alex knows what I'm making right now. We used to do this a lot in elementary school.
And high school.
And after.
Ooh, okay, yeah, that did it. That did the trick.
Oh.
See, now look,
whoa,
that stuff,
yeah.
see how that's all transparent now?
It went super clear, yeah.
It went very, very clear. And now with this material...
Help me! Help me! Sorry.
here's the best part. If I had put dye into this water, it would take the color of the dye. So you can dye colors into this thing if you want to do colored designs.
Yeah.
And you can cool it off. So if we had like a tub of water,
yeah,
you could flash cool it so that you say, okay, that part's fine, stay there.
Oh, that's cool.
Or you could use a heat gun if you need to like just get a bit more and just heat it up enough.
Can I dip it back in here? And
you can recycle it. So if your design doesn't work out, just go ahead and put it back in. Give it a bit more heat.
Tell me your secrets. Never.
So will the clay guy melt?
Are you making the Wicker Man?
No, I'm just making a little guy.
Actually, no. Thank you, Burke. This is actually.
Thanks, Burke.
I can do this now.
What are you gonna make?
Cross.
Boring.
Duh. That's what I do. It's my deal. It's my jam, Brian.
That is cool.
Ooh, mine's good. Ow! Okay, mine's hot. Mine's really hot.
Be careful. Be careful.
Here, you show them your design.
Okay. So I've got. That was pretty easy to make actually for me. Like if you have any experience messing with clay, like I have done a lot. It's pretty much like that. Except it's so cool how it sticks together so well, and it does feel like like plastic. Like it's just got that smooth texture to it.
If you like it, you should have put a ring on it.
What is
or
that?
Bracelet.
So is yours that much clearer? Because
when I was a kid, I made a lot of ashtrays. It started as something and then it ended up ashtray.
Nobody I knew smoked, but I always made ashtray.
Here's the issue though. Instamorph is great, but if you have no creative skills, it's still gonna look like this versus like that.
All right, I'm gonna start making some stuff with this project. So is yours this much clearer because
it's still hot?
It's still hot.
So as it gets colder, it's gonna get more and more opaque, and then eventually it will become stiff. So this is still pretty easy to move.
Right.
But if I were to let's put it in my drinking water.
Gross.
Yeah, we'll just leave him in there for a while. So he's gonna cool off, and it actually becomes hard plastic.
Cool.
People have made chassis for quadcopters, along with face masks. Essentially, anything that you want to make that holds a shape or holds an edge, Instamorph is perfect for. And it's cheap because the idea behind this is once you're done with your design, if you don't like it, so that's now become pretty firm.
Yeah.
You just put it back in the hot water, and it'll turn back into this opaque stuff.
I guess that's just one thing you have to be careful of, though. Like if you make a quadcopter frame out of it and it gets too hot and motors fly off or something.
So it turns back into modeling putty at about 150 degrees. It starts to soften at about 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful.
That is so cool.
But yeah, you got a lot of time to model. I mean, see, this thing is, we can still go. We can still stretch this out if let's make stuff.
Padre, your creativity is showing.
I'm really not good at this. It's I know what I can make. You know what you can make? You can make orthodontal
Bite down
appliances.
on it?
Yeah. Oh, you can
kinda
make bite
gross.
plates with this stuff.
Yeah, you could. I'm not going to do that because I've seen you touching it. But
Yeah. Actually, Patrick Delahanty could make Groot. He could make baby Groot's face with this stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, I bet if you had like a mold too, and you could just kind of like press it into a mold and then bloop, pull it out.
User 2422 says, "Well, how many times can it be used? It's endless.
Endless.
It's plastic.
It doesn't
so
lose like its
It doesn't lose its
or anything?
elasticity. The worst thing that could happen is it starts to get dirty. So if you happen to heat it up when it's covered in filth, that stuff it's like clay. It gets stuck in there, right? But you can always add new virgin material to increase the strength of it if it is a little sticky, a little tacky. Dang. But I've used the same bits of Instamorph over and over for probably 2 or 3 months. I have a little holder on my computer for my camera because I want to keep it at a certain level.
And you made it out of
perfect,
this?
yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, if you want to do some fast prototyping or 3D printers like setup, this is a very, very good alternative because it's cheap, it's super easy to work with, and it's pretty much good for all occasions.
That is neat. Yeah, especially if you don't have like a drafting background or you're not used to extruding models and making like a 3D thing. But you have worked with clay and you just want to make something simple.
Yeah.
Like,
if you like to work with your hands, if you're a visual person, this is actually a better medium because unlike a 3D printer where you have to have everything finalized before you start printing, you could change the design as you go. In fact, what I've seen some more advanced 3D printer guys do is they'll use something like Instamorph to make the first design, and then they'll either 3D scan it or they'll draw their CAD from that design so that they can get the final version on a 3D printer.
That is cool. Yeah. And it's getting harder.
It's getting hard, it will get harder and harder until it becomes like hard plastic.
Plastic
it will become the same consistency as these beads. So, I mean, if you feel this it's gonna end up this strength right there. So it's got a nice density to it.
Plastic.
It's hard plastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Brian, can we see your guy?
My little guy? Yeah.
So this is something that you did a lot.
Well, let's take a look here.
I was wondering if you'd find those pictures. Yep, that was that's actually in my drafting class right there. Back in high school. So yep, I have lots of practice at making these little guys.
And as Beef said, the longer that you play with it, the harder it gets. Thank you.
That's terrible.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Oh, I thought Burke was why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, this is a great thing to have in your toolkit. It's something that you should have on your shelf if you're any sort of DIYer or maker because it comes in as handy as modeling clay, as duct tape. You know what else is really good to have in your DIY kit?
Something that you can use to fix stuff.
I'm thinking fixing things with proper tools.
Yes, that makes all the difference and saves so much time and frustration. And I'm thinking of iFixit when we're talking about that.
I think so,
But I'm also thinking about the quad that I had to take apart and all the little screws and how there's the magnetic tips on the end of the iFixit kit. Is it out here?
No.
Oh.
Because,
Oh, you have B-roll
There we go. Exactly. Because iFixit is the place to go when you want all those special heads, all those special drivers in order to get your gadgets and your gizmos open so you can fix them. Now, iFixit from their teardowns of the iPhone 6 and other gadgets, and now you'll fall in love with their line of professional electronic tools. iFixit's tools are designed by the teardown engineers who have torn apart hundreds of devices and built thousands of repair guides. They know what it takes to work on gadgets, and this holiday season, they want to arm you and everyone on your list with the right tools that you need to tackle electronics repair work or to hack. Now, iFixit offers the perfect 1-2 punch, the ProTech Toolkit and Magnetic Project Mat. With these, you can fix just about anything and stay organized while doing it. And right now, iFixit is offering both in a special holiday bundle for only $74.95. Now, the ProTech Toolkit is 70 tools to assist you with any mod malfunction or misfortune. It's the gold standard for electronics work used by garage hackers and the FBI. More importantly, their unique tools are used by repair technicians everywhere. It includes iFixit's 54-bit driver kit with 54 standard specialty and security bits, swivel top precision drivers, flex extensions for hard to reach screws, ESD safe precision tweezers, nylon spudgers, metal spudgers, plastic opening tools. Lightweight, it's compact, and it comes in a tool roll that makes it the on-the-go choice for repair professionals and amateurs alike. Hobbyists and home DIY fixers also use the ProTech Toolkit for doorknobs, eyeglasses, cabinets, doors, sink fixtures, and more. Now, this magnetic project mat, both of us have really gotten a lot of use out of that.
That's my favorite.
That's your favorite because it allows you to take the screws out and label them so you never forget where they go. It's an original iFixit invention that lets you organize your repair work. That magnetic surface holds tiny screws. It's safe for hard drives. The dry erase surface lets you draw your instructions so you'll never lose another screw again. Now, iFixit has something for every DIY hacker and geek on your list. Head over to ifixit.com/twit to check out their holiday deals, including the ProTech Toolkit and Magnetic Mat Bundle for only $74.95. And when you enter the code KNOWHOW at checkout, you'll save $10 off any purchase of $50 or more. That's ifixit.com/twit. ifixit.com/twit. And use the code KNOWHOW. And we thank iFixit for their support of KnowHow. My plastic is...
Yeah, this guy is
no longer
solid now.
But it's
What?
It's nothing.
It's a Mobius strip, right?
Oh.
No.
So
What
sad.
is? It's like a terrible onion ring.
It's an ashtray. I told you.
You got an A+ for effort,
I
Padre.
make nothing but ashtrays.
But the ashtrays,
Wait.
the ashes go right through the
Right.
hole.
I don't know.
It's a hula hoop.
This is the saddest thing I've ever seen,
I never said I was good at this. I just said that this is how you do it.
Padre.
Yeah. Now, you know, we have been doing Project Quad for the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
And we've been doing it the long way. There's been a lot of people who are saying, well, you know, why don't you just get to the building?
Whoa.
There's a
Hold your
philosophy here.
horses,
And
yeah.
this is the thing that both of us feel very deeply
I was
on.
in the same boat.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it didn't work out so well for the DJI. I'll
No,
tell you
it
that
did
much.
not.
Oh.
And that's actually the problem. You have a lot of people who are buying high-performance drones,
Right.
high-performance quadcopters.
They see where they want to be at, and they haven't
they
played with it
They
yet.
don't know how it works. They don't know how it flies, and they end up crashing it. Or what really bothers me, they end up doing stupid things with it.
Or hurting somebody,
Or
right?
hurting someone. Yeah. You know, like flying it up to 4,000 feet near air traffic.
Above the cloud level, and then
Above
the
clouds.
GPS doesn't work, and
Yeah, and that's just not the right way to do it. So what we've been doing is we've been giving you the slow approach so that you understand all the tech that goes into the quadcopter, and then we're going to teach you how to fly it responsibly so that you would be a quadcopter expert rather than just a quadcopter
amateur. Or,
right.
yeah.
But now it's time for my favorite part, Alex. It's integration.
For our integration tutorial, we wanted a build that everybody could do. That meant no soldering, the simplest, strongest frame that we could get, a flight controller that didn't need a computer for programming, and all the little knickknacks at an affordable price. We decided on the FPV 250 from Hobby King because it's a decently priced kit that includes all the hardware that you need, except for a flight controller, radio, and battery charger. Still, the overall procedure that we're going to give you will work on pretty much any set of hardware, like this 230 class quad that I made mostly with parts from Ready to Fly Quads. Once you're comfortable with soldering and feel competent enough to choose your own parts, you can use these steps to assemble any size of quad. In the box for the FPV 250, you'll find a one-piece glass fiber body with detachable landing struts, 4 Multistar 1704 motors, a set of 5x3x3 propellers, 4 Afro version 3 12-amp speed controllers, a power distribution harness, a 1000 mAh Turnigy LiPo battery, servo leads, and the hardware for an FPV mount. To complete the build, you'll need a 4 to 6 channel radio, a flight controller, and a battery charger. We chose a FlySky T6 radio, a KK 2.1.5 flight controller, and an IMAX B6 LiPo charger. On the tool side, you'll want a small Phillips screwdriver, a set of Allen wrenches to tighten the hex bolts, a tube of Loctite glue, zip ties, and some snips. Since this is a monoframe, assembly is easy. The first step is to run the included Velcro strap through the slots at the bottom of the cage at the center of the frame. The strap will be used to hold batteries, wires, and other equipment to the bottom of the quad. Next up is the flight controller. Our KK goes into the cage to protect it and keep it at the center of the combined thrust of the motors. When installing the board, make a note as to which way you want to be the front of your quad. With this frame, the front of the quad is typically the shelf with a cutout for the FPV mount. But as we're not using the FPV in this build, forward can be any direction, as long as we know which way we're building. This is important because flight controllers need to be pointed in the right direction to control the craft. On the KK, the buttons are always towards the rear of the quad, but all controllers will have some way to tell which way should be pointed forward. 4 screws secure the controller, and a roll cage gives it a measure of protection in the event of a crash. The landing struts are friction held onto the end of each arm so that you can put them on and take them off during construction as needed to gauge clearance. Once you're done with integration, a little dab of CA can keep them from vibrating free or popping out after hard landings. The kit includes 4 Multistar 1740-1900 kV outrunning motors that mount directly onto the frame with the included M2 6mm bolts and washers. It's very important, if you ever need to replace the bolts, that you do not use bolts that are too long, in this case longer than 6mm. Longer bolts risk penetrating too far into the can and making contact with the windings, destroying the motor. Before you install the bolts, dab some Loctite blue on the threads. You need only a very thin film towards the bottom of the bolt. The Loctite will keep the bolts from vibrating out of the mount while allowing you to remove them when needed. Do not use Loctite red, as that will effectively fuse the bolt to the motor. With the motors mounted, it's time to get wired up. The frame uses a honeycomb lattice, and I prefer to keep my wiring neat by dropping the motor's bullet connectors through the lattice so I can keep the top clear for the ESCs. All of the following instructions will assume that you're looking at the KK board with the buttons towards the bottom. You'll see 2 rows of 3-pin headers to the left and right of the board. The radio receiver leads will connect to the left, while the ESC leads will connect to the right. The kit includes 3 servo leads, which will allow you to connect 5 channels between the receiver and the KK flight controller. I know that sounds strange, but you only need the full 3 pins connected for the first channel. 1 pin provides the signal for channel 1, while the other 2 pins will feed power from the controller to the receiver. Taking a look at the receiver, you'll find a schematic for which pins are signal and which are power. Plug the full lead into the receiver pins for channel 1, making sure to use the white or yellow wire for signal. Take the other side of the lead and plug it into the topmost set of pins on the left side of the controller, with the white or yellow signal cable towards the inside of the KK. To connect the other channels, take another lead and connect it to the signal pins of channels 2 through 4 on the receiver. Note the color of the wire connected to channel 2. Now connect the other end of that lead to the KK, remembering what color channels 2 wire is, and making sure to connect only to the signal pins towards the inside of the board. Use the last lead to connect channel 5 from the receiver to the controller. Now that you've connected the receiver, let's connect the KK's alarm. You should have a small 2-wire buzzer with your KK. On the top left of the KK, you'll see 2 pins labeled buzzer. Connect the buzzer, making sure to connect the red to the positive pin and the black to the negative. The ESCs will be connected to the row of pins to the right of the KK, with the topmost set of pins for ESC1, the second set for ESC2, and so forth. Looking at the frame, the number of the ESC, and thus the motor, is as follows. Front left is number 1, front right is number 2, bottom right is number 3, bottom left is number 4. Make sure that the ground wire is to the outside of the board, the positive wire is in the middle, and the signal cable, usually yellow or white, is to the inside. Special note, be careful with how you connect your ESC leads. The ESCs include a battery eliminator circuit, or BEC, that provides power to the flight controller and the receiver from the main battery, but they can fry electronics if incorrectly connected. Check and double-check your connections before you apply power. Another note, the KK 2.1.5 can accept all 4 ESCs, each with their own BEC, and only take power from channel 1. However, some flight controllers will fry if you connect them to more than one BEC-equipped ESC. If you're using such a flight controller, snip the red center wire on ESCs other than the first, or just pop it out of the plug and wrap it to keep it from making contact with anything else. Thread the leads from the ESC down through the frame so that they can be connected to the motor leads. Connect each motor to its corresponding speed controller, remembering the numbering. There are 3 leads from each motor and 3 bullet plugs on each speed controller. It doesn't matter what order you plug them in, just make sure that each motor is connected to only one speed controller. With the ESCs connected, we can power up the craft and check motor rotation. The kit includes a power distribution harness. Connect the 4 red wires from the ESCs to the red block and the 4 black wires from the ESCs to the black block. Take a moment to look over your connections to make sure everything is plugged in correctly. If any connections are incorrect, the next step could smoke your electronics. Once you're satisfied that you're wired correctly, turn on your transmitter and connect the power plug to your battery. After a few beeps, you should see the flight controller and receiver power up. Let's first make sure that the flight controller is receiving input from your radio. Hit the rightmost key on the KK to enter the menu, then scroll to Receiver Tests and hit the rightmost key again. You'll see values for inputs from your receiver. Move your sticks to make sure that they're controlling the right channel. With a Mode 2 transmitter, moving the right stick up and down should change the value for elevator, while left and right should change aileron. Moving the left stick up and down should change throttle, while left and right should change rudder. Refer to the last segment on transmitters if your input is reversed. If you're getting no or missing input from your receiver, do the following. 1. Check to see if the receiver is on. If it's not, you may have reversed the channel 1 cable. 2. Make sure that channels 2 through 5 are connected to the signal pins on both the receiver and flight controller. 3. Disconnect the battery, make sure your transmitter is on, then reconnect power. Once you confirm the proper input, let's check the rotation of your motors. It can be difficult to see which way the motors are spinning, so I put a piece of tape on the shafts to help me see their rotation. With the KK screen in safe mode, pull the throttle all the way back and to the right. The KK should arm. Now gently cycle the motors to get them spinning and watch the tape as they spin down. Motors 1 and 3 should be spinning clockwise. Motors 2 and 4, counterclockwise. Make a note of any motor that has to be reversed, then disconnect the battery. If you have motors that need reversing, simply swap any 2 of the 3 motor connectors for that motor and ESC. It doesn't matter which color, just remember to swap the motor connectors and not the controller or power leads. Power it up and try the test again. When you're satisfied that they're turning the right way, the last electrical step is to calibrate the ESCs so they all have the same values for start and stop. With the quad's battery disconnected, turn on your transmitter and advance the throttle to full. Hold down buttons 1 and 4 on the KK and keep holding them. Connect the quad's battery. The controller will go into throttle pass-through mode, and you should hear a beep that will verify that all 4 ESCs have calibrated 100% throttle. Continuing to hold the KK buttons, move the throttle to off. You will hear another set of beeps to confirm calibration of 0% throttle. Release the KK buttons and disconnect the battery. Use zip ties to lock down the ESCs, cables, and receivers. Screw the cage top onto the frame and tidy up your wiring so that no connections are overstressed. With everything tidy, install the propellers on each motor, remembering that you want clockwise props on motors 1 and 3 and counterclockwise on 2 and 4. If you get confused, install the props so that they'll turn in a way that their pitch will push air down. Use the washers and nuts to lock the props, and your system integration is now complete.
Now, that gave you instructions for assembling one of these. This is an FPV 250 from Hobby King. We've both done this. We both have our own distinct builds.
This has, been the one I've moved up from the Cyma X5.
Yeah, you did your trainer days, and now you've actually got something these things can
This is
fall.
the next level,
They're
and
crazy.
it's fun.
Yeah, next episode we're going to be doing some flying, and you get to see these things in the air, and it's impressive. But I will say, I said it in the video, and I'll say it again, even though we gave you instructions for assembling the 250, the same basic instructions will work for assembling pretty much any size quadcopter. This is a 230 class that I built from the parts I got from Ready to Fly Quads. In fact, White Spy is in our chat room right now. That's Paul Baxter. He runs Ready to Fly Quads. You know,
Cool guy.
Cool guy. Here's the thing.
You can tell he's passionate about these things.
He's passionate about it because he's not. I mean, he puts his heart and soul into making the parts that he ships out. He can't be making a whole lot of money for it, so it's just his love for the field, for the craft, and his stuff's top notch. So I mean, I built this 230 using the same steps as I did to build this 250.
Right, and we were talking earlier about how once you have the basic setup, you could always just get another frame and rewire it if you wanted to do something different.
Exactly. In fact, we're going to be talking about this during the feedback issue, but this is something that I also got from Ready to Fly Quads. So this is from readytoflyquads.com. This is a 230 class. It's aggressive. You can tell. I mean, it's designed to stretch out the wheelbase a little bit so that you get a bit more differentiation of thrust. You can really make this thing move. If we wanted to, we could take the components off the 250, put it on here, and it handles like a brand new quadcopter. Completely different craft, and it's a $20 frame.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, I like the Lego thing. You know, just like, oh, well, all right, I'm done with this.
Right.
What do we got next?
Yeah, what's the next thing I can build? This one's pretty flexible for the different things that you want to do.
I like this because this it's kind of like the SEMA in that it's really hard to kill. I've crashed this into a lot of things.
Yeah,
I
so
break
have
props. That's
yeah,
about it.
props come and go, but the frame lasts forever.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's a nice balance between performance and just durability.
And I jankily attached a GoPro to the bottom of it, and it worked. It wasn't great, but it was a lot better than I thought it would be. Yeah. Poor thing.
A few things. Okay, so first thing is heat shrink is your friend. You're going to see, if you go to the overhead here, you're going to see a lot of connections like these, right? Like this. Now, I've done a pretty good job here of making sure that the heat shrink goes all the way so you don't see the bullet itself.
Those look nice.
Yeah. But you also can have things like this where the motor connection didn't go all the way, so you can actually see a little bit of gold.
Oh, yeah.
If you take a little piece of heat shrink and you put it over that before you put the bullets together and then shrink the heat shrink, it will make sure that these never make contact. I mean, it won't on this quad, but be careful because if any of these connections ever touch, you're going to blow something out. A battery, an ESC, hopefully
Bad
not.
news.
Yeah, the flight controller.
Okay.
The other thing, so heat shrink is your friend, but there's this debate between bullets and soldering. There are people who like to solder everything because it means that you can remove all that excess cable. And wire adds weight. You know,
it does.
Actually,
a few grams makes a pretty big difference on these. Yeah.
It changes the way that it flies. So there are people who like on this, go to the overhead, on this 230 class, you could go straight from the motor to the ESC to the flight controller and power distribution board. But on the bottom here, you see all this cable that I've bundled up.
Yeah.
I could get rid of that
if you soldered.
If I soldered, and I could get rid of the weight of the bullets if I soldered, but I kind of like the whole Lego thing. I like being able to pull things apart.
Right.
You know, if I built something purely for performance, like I knew I was going to be racing it, I would probably go with straight solder, get every ounce, every gram of weight off the craft.
But because we're kind of playing around with a bunch of different models, we want to be able to plug and play.
Right, right. So. And also I want to say this. If you do buy ESCs or actually no, just ESCs from Ready to Fly quads, they're not going to come with bullets, and the reason for that is because he can't solder the thousands of bullets that would be required. So it's it's up to you.
Jeez, yeah, that would be a little rough.
Something else, you can always add something like this. This is cool. This actually attaches to the 250. And it gives you a little camera cage. So
that is cool.
That's where the FPV would go.
Yeah.
And it would also give you a place to, like, instead of hanging the battery off the bottom of the craft, it'd be somewhat protected.
Right.
But remember, anytime you do this, you're going to be
adding weight.
Add weight, right.
You'll be reducing your flight time, you'll be reducing the responsiveness, but it's all part of the trade-offs. And if you're going to be doing FPV or you're going to have a battery and a GoPro, I would recommend having it so that you can kind of balance it out instead of like me zip tying a GoPro to the bottom of the frame.
Yeah. I mean, weight is your enemy. I mean, so you always have to be countering the added functionality with how much weight is it going to be adding to your craft.
That's part of the fun, the balance, finding the balance.
Yeah. And again, it's that Lego kit mentality. Yeah. Something else is that buy a lot of props. You're going to break props. You will break a ton of props. Buy way more props than you think you're going to need. They won't go to waste.
Right.
I promise you. And now on the 250 that we built, these are actually super flexible props. The reason why they're three-bladed is because of this motor configuration. It can't really take advantage of a two-bladed prop. You would never be able to get a large enough prop to max out the motor. So it's a three-blade. But on something like this,
you ran into some stability issues, didn't you?
I ran into some stability issues.
When you tried doing two props on that?
Yeah, it's not really. This is not a good motor for two-bladed props.
Right.
But when you start going up to these big, we've got the parachute man here. When you start going up to these larger craft here, you will go to 8, 10, and 11-inch two-bladed props. And we will actually show you how to balance them in a future episode. We're coming to the end of this arc for quadcopters. When we get into the advanced lessons, balancing props is one of the very first episodes.
Right. And these are the props that you don't want to get hit with either.
Yeah, these are carbon fiber. These will cut
hurt you.
These will cut deep.
And they don't break.
Maybe you can demonstrate that with the guy.
Decapitation!
This is pretty hard plastic. I don't know. I think it might break one of the props, yeah.
One last bit before we move on. Center of gravity. It's not as important with a quadcopter as it is in, say, a plane, because like if you make a plane tail heavy, it will crash. It will just done. Quadcopters can compensate because the flight controllers will increase thrust on one side or the other in order to keep the thing level. But here's the thing. If you have your center of gravity set, let's say, too far forward, it means that your quadcopter is going to have to increase thrust on the front motors in order to keep it level.
It has to compensate.
It has to compensate, which means that you're going to have less thrust range available out of the front motors. If the front motors have to operate at 80% just to keep it level, and the rear motors are operating at 40%, then you're going to be able to go faster one direction than another.
Right.
So what you want to do is just remember that your flight controller is your center of gravity. So my flight controller here is located here. This is the brains of the craft, the thing that will tell the quadcopter what to do with its motors in order to keep it level. So what I want is a center of gravity that if I were to put a skewer through the middle of the flight controller, like right now you can see this is actually pretty level. I've balanced out the GoPro and the battery, and I can move this battery forward and back so that I can keep this thing level. If I remove the GoPro, I have to move the battery closer to the middle, so otherwise it will be tail heavy.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah,
and you can do the same thing with the smaller ones. It's a little harder because they don't have natural CG points. But like, just imagine if I had skewers right in the center of this craft here, and once I attach my battery, I can figure out where I have to put it in order to level out that CG.
Yeah, I bet there's something we could come up with, like some little mount, you know, and then that way we could test the balance before we start flying.
Yeah. And right now we're only testing this way because we're assuming that you're building it symmetrically.
Right.
So you don't really have to worry about
the other
side to
direction.
side. Yeah.
Cool.
Now, when we come back, we're going to be taking some feedbacks. We're going to go over some of your questions and some of your comments from our Google Plus group. But before we do that, let's take a moment and thank the second sponsor of this episode of Know How. Hey, Brian, you have a portfolio maybe, or a website, or maybe a project that you want to put online?
I do actually, and I've been using it a lot more lately because I've been getting back into photography, and that's my Squarespace site.
Absolutely.
And I've just been hosting a lot of my photos on there, and then I just share the link from there instead of posting it to a bunch of different social networks.
And the nice thing about that is you buy one account, one service, you pay one fee per month or yearly, and then you don't have to worry about the back end and worry about who's hosting and who's taking care of your domain, who's doing your front end. You don't have to go out and get a WordPress framework or Drupal and then spend forever configuring it. It just looks beautiful from the start.
And they keep upgrading it, and I have never had to pay more. They just keep making it better.
And that's the reason why we love Squarespace. Squarespace is the one-stop shop on the internet to go if you want to publish your portfolio, your photographs, your website, your project, whatever it is. Squarespace can help you get the word out. Now, some of the reasons why you're going to love Squarespace as much as we do is that they are constantly improving their platform. Squarespace 7 has just been introduced, and it makes getting started with your unique web presence even easier. It has a completely redesigned interface, now simpler to navigate and operate in one seamless experience. It's got easier editing. They do this brand new live edit on screen. So rather than changing the edit slightly, changing the page, and then going to the preview, it will show you in real time what your edits are doing to the page. It's the best way to edit. They also give you instant access to professional stock photography from Getty. So rather than having to worry about whether or not your images and your sounds are licensed, you get a button, an interface within Squarespace that lets you purchase these fantastic pieces of art from Getty and legally put them on your page, so there's no muss, no fuss, no worry about compliance. You also get instant branded email setups with Google Apps. Now you can have branded email for your small business automatically when you sign up for a Squarespace account so that your email doesn't look generic. It's not a Gmail address, it's your domain. Your name is your brand and you have to protect it. Squarespace understands that. Also, their developer platform is out of beta, so you can customize your site exactly as you wish. If you're a developer, you'll have control to the same platform that Squarespace uses for its own site, and it gives you complete code control. Speaking of complete code control, Squarespace also gives you templates that are designed for specific professions. I mean, let's face it, you don't want your page for medical information to look like the page that they're using for food reviews. Squarespace understands that, and so they group their templates so you can choose the one that's appropriate for your content. They also give you e-commerce with all subscription plan levels, including the ability to accept donations, which is great for nonprofits, cash wedding registries, and school fund drives. It's also easy to use, but you know what? If you need some help, Squarespace has live chat and email 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Plus, there are self-help articles and video workshops to browse at your leisure. And at just $8 a month, Squarespace isn't going to break the bank, and it includes a free domain if you sign up for a year. Now, the Squarespace Portfolio, Note, Metric, and Blog mobile apps are on-the-go extensions of your website, so now you can monitor the performance of your content while you're on the go. And Squarespace takes care of the hosting, as we mentioned at the beginning, so you don't have to. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to start a free 2-week trial with no credit card required and start building your website today. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code KNOWHOW to get 10% off and to show your support for Know-How. And to begin using Squarespace 7, existing customers go to the Settings tab to activate all the new features. We thank Squarespace for their support of Know-How. Squarespace, start here. Go anywhere.
Super easy to switch over to.
Super easy. We love that. Let's get into some feedback. We've got some good questions. We're running out of time, so Brian, take us away.
All right, this first question comes from Ronald Kerr, and he has some Wi-Fi problems. On several occasions, Padre has stated that the modern mobile devices are smart enough to jump between wireless access points that use the same SSID. We also know that only 3 channels in the 2.4 gigahertz range don't overlap. My question is this: if I were to set up 3 wireless access points in a house using the same SSID, do I set all the wireless access points to the same channel, or do I have to switch each access point to its own channel to avoid interference?
Yes.
So, yes, you do.
All right, next question. No, that's
But why, Padre?
Okay. We get this a lot, and you know what? I don't mind covering this a lot because this is a basic setup that everyone needs to know.
Yeah, I'm actually going through this at my house right now, too.
Yeah. So we've known, I've told people for a while that you can have multiple access points all broadcasting the same SSID. So that's the same unique network name, right?
Right.
So as you wander through your house or your campus or wherever, your device will switch from one to the next as the signal diminishes on one and it increases on another.
It's like a small version of a wireless cell network.
Exactly,
you know?
same principle. Now here's the thing. People have been writing in and saying, well, it's not working for me. 90% of the time, it's because they haven't set up the access point correctly.
Right. They got NATs on their nets.
They got NAT on NAT.
NAT on NAT?
No, it's deep netting. No, the problem is, there are a lot of devices out there that they're not actually access points. They're combination routers, access points, and maybe even cable modems. You have to turn off the functionality of the DHCP server, the NAT, and the gateway on all the other devices except for the primary one in the house.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so
Makes
for
sense.
example, let's say I have WRT 54Gs, right? It's the old standard. It's only 2.4 gigahertz.
Right.
If I had 3 of them, I would set one for channel 1, one for channel 6, and one for channel 11. Those are the non-overlapping channels inside Wi-Fi.
Right.
They won't interfere with one another. I would give them all the same SSID, but only the one that is connected to the cable modem or DSL modem would have its DHCP server turned on.
The other ones would all be off because they're in like a bridge mode, right?
Yeah, they should be in bridge mode. And then here's the other thing. You have to connect the LAN ports from the, I'm going to call it the primary router, to the LAN ports of the routers that you've turned into access points. Some people go through the WAN port, and that's no good as well, because essentially you're still NATing. Now, there are some routers that let you assign the WAN port to the LAN, but most people don't click that, or the router's just not smart enough to do that. And so if you have your primary going into the WAN ports of the 2 routers, even though they don't have their DHCP servers turned on, you're still going to get funky addressing. The network's not flat.
Oh, okay. I think I've been having that problem.
I think you've been doing that.
Because I was like, oh, internet goes, this is like from the main router, you know, internet goes into the internet.
No.
You want to go into the LAN port.
Yeah, so, essentially what you've done is you still put the NAT on top of a NAT, but you've turned off the DHCP server on that second access point. So devices will connect to it, but then they just go right,
Yeah.
so
Nothing.
what am I doing?
Right. Yeah, and it's infuriating because you're like, I'm connected. Why isn't it working?
Yeah. And you know, again, 90% of the time, that's the issue.
Okay. Yeah, because one, I have like the standard WRT version of, and then I put DD-WRT on the other one to put it into bridge mode and make it a repeater.
Now, Untoward is saying it will still drop a stream when you transition between two APs.
Yeah.
Yes, it will, but not necessarily. So here's the thing. It's not like a cell phone network in which the cell phone, most of the time, it will hand off seamlessly to a tower.
Right.
The way it will work on a Wi-Fi network is when you leave one SSID and it connects to another, it will recognize that it can use the same DHCP address, so it will not request another DHCP address, but the network still has to figure out where you went. Unless you're using an enterprise class wireless system, which will automatically route you, what's going to happen is the gateway, let's say you're streaming something to your computer. The gateway will be calling out to your computer. Or YouTube. It'll be calling out to you, and then suddenly it will no longer be able to reach you. And it will try it for a while, and then it will do what's called a broadcast. It'll go to the network and say, hey, who's got MAC address, blah, 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 blah. Now the other AP is going to go, oh, he's over here, and then it starts routing.
Okay.
Now, most of the time, the buffer in your stream, be it the Twitch stream, YouTube, or Netflix, will be enough so that it doesn't seem like it dropped.
So you won't see that hiccup.
Yeah, but if you're doing a direct stream, you're going to lose, it's going to disconnect.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a soft drop.
Yeah, and the use case for me is that the main router where the cable, the Comcast comes into the house is on the other side from where my bedroom is. So I'm setting up a router closer to my bedroom. I'm not necessarily crossing like from one side of the house back and forth all the time. I just need like a stronger signal on the other side of the house. So I probably wouldn't notice it at all.
I would just put wires everywhere.
Yeah, I have wires everywhere.
Seriously, I
but
just use wired.
I do have wires everywhere. I'm just not sure where everything goes because I think we talked about it last episode, setting up a panel and writing down where everything goes. Me and my dad didn't do that like 10 years ago. We were just throwing cable into the walls and in the attic.
I got some tools that will help you with that.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right, let's go and jump to the next one.
Okay. So the next one comes from Brad Rowe. I want to build my quad. He sounds excited. Hi, I'm looking to build a 230mm quadcopter. I'm not sure what kind of motors to use. I'd like it to be pretty easy to control, but fast. And this is my first build, so yeah, you want to keep it simple. Yeah. What are some of the recommendations here, Padre?
Well, okay, so these are all going to be in the show notes, so don't freak out if you don't catch us right away. But I've got a couple of different build possibilities. This would be the inexpensive 230 build. Again, I bought all these parts from Ready to Fly Quads, and you're going to hear me say Ready to Fly Quads a lot. Yeah. But pretty much if you go anywhere on the internet and talk to people, this guy has really good stuff.
Okay.
You could buy motors from Amazon. Don't do that. Seriously. The quality of parts that you're going to buy on Amazon, if you really want to put together a good quadcopter, they vary so much that it's not worth it. I mean, if you buy 4 motors and one of them is bunk, you just lost any savings you were going to get.
Right.
This is a nice one because it's very simple to make. Now, I'm not sure, Alex, if you want to scroll through some of the things that I suggested. This is the frame. It's a $15 frame. This is a 230 millimeter. This is using glass fiber, super durable and very easy to put together. So that's about 15 bucks. Then you've got the motors I would suggest are these. These are inexpensive, 10 bucks a pop. These are 1806, 2300 kV. So it costs you 40 bucks there. The props would be the Funfly 5x3s. These are also inexpensive. These are the ESCs right here. These are F12 amp, which is more than enough for those motors.
Running the Simon K firmware, which is the one we want. Yep.
Right. So that's going to be about $31 for 4 of them. The props, by the way, would cost you about $120. The flight controller.
Buy multiple props.
Buy a lot. Yeah. The controller. This controller is awesome. It is so incredible. Get this one, and it's only $15.
Oh, is this the Arduino based?
Yeah,
one?
it's that little one that I showed you that has the telemetry.
Nice. It has the HUD set up and stuff. Yeah.
And then the receiver and the radio. That's going to depend on what you want. I'm using the FlySky. It's super cheap right now. I've also got a Spectrum. That setup is going to run you about $116.
And once you have the controller and stuff,
you
then
don't
you
buy
can
that anymore.
Yeah.
Now, If you want to get a performance 230 build, that's when I would suggest this frame. This thing is cool. Because it spreads the motors out a bit more, you can get a bit more wiggle into it, a bit more speed. I like the cage, because the cage gives you a good way to secure all your components.
Right.
Even if you want to do FPV. This frame is going to cost you about $20. This is their RTF mini frame. The motors, I would actually go for these. These are more advanced. If you buy 4 of them, he actually gives you a deal. It'll cost you $61. The 2208, 2300 kV, fantastic. Really, really nice motors. They don't really get better than that. I would get the carbon composite props. Cost you about $620 for a set. So, those are 6 by 4.5. The 20 amp speed controllers, because you might be pushing these a tiny bit harder. You might want to go with 4S batteries.
This seems like more of a race setup.
A little more racy. It's $32 for that. The flight controller, keep the same flight controller, or go up to the Flip 32.
What's that?
It adds things like barometer and compass, so that you can do things like it'll maintain its heading and altitude.
Right.
And then the same FlySky receiver and radio.
Cool.
That setup's going to run you about $160.
Yeah.
So you're going about $50 more or so. Not bad. And then I've also got a setup for 250 class. We'll make sure that goes into the show notes. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. Just go to readytoflyquads.com, because not only will you find all those parts, but they've also got a really good wiki in case you want to figure out where everything goes.
Very cool. Yeah, sounds like a good way to get into it.
Yeah. Last one.
All right, Jonathan Turner. Oh, this was cool. Yeah. So he quadcopter plus long exposure equals Tron.
I love this.
Or I also like to think of Akira, because that looks amazing.
This is such a good idea.
He used his trainer quad and a micro four thirds camera and was able to get some pretty awesome pictures by just having the exposure on for a while. And I think if you got really good at this, you could probably spell something out. Yeah, draw something.
He
Those
was
are
saying
cool
how
pictures.
I just clicked it and I went crazy. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? If you like practice this, it could be awesome. People were saying, well, how come the quad's not visible? Well, that's the thing about long exposure.
Because it's moving.
It's moving, but the lights are so bright that they will expose on the film, on the sensor.
That's why if you've ever seen those photos where people draw out a word or something, you don't see the person there because they're moving and the light is so bright compared to
unless they
everything
stop.
else.
If they stop for a bit, then you might see a shadow.
See like a ghost.
But like, for example, on your quad, we've got these super bright LEDs.
Could do it with
installed.
that, for sure.
I would really like to see what it looks like with this.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was like, Akira.
Yeah. Now, folks, we know that this was a lot of information. Everything from the Instamorph to how to fix Wi-Fi.
And
that
all
whole
over the
tutorial.
place today.
We really did. We like to give you a mix. That's what we do, right?
Yeah. No. Jump around. Keep it. Keep you on your toes. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Get up, get down, jump around. Oh, sorry.
If anybody missed the pre-show, you should watch live because Padre was dropping some mad beats.
Dropping beats.
Yeah.
Go figure. But don't forget, you can get our show notes at twit.tv/KH. And there you'll find not just of all of our episodes, but also a place where you could subscribe so you get our episodes automatically into your device of choice. If there's something that you want to follow along, this is wow.
I was proud of that picture right there. That was a fun episode.
I know. I could tell you put it in. Don't forget, you can also find us on Google+. This is actually a great place to go to get your questions answered or to post your projects. We put it into the show. Go to gplus.to/twitkh or just go to G+ and look for the Know How community. Join us.
Post your projects, ask some questions, show us your awesome exposure pictures of the quads flying around and stuff. Like, that's why I love it. It's almost 8,000 people, I think, in it right now.
I like it. Don't forget that that's not the only place where you can find us on social media. You'll also find us on Twitter. I'm at twitter.com/PadreSJ. That's at PadreSJ.
And I am at cranky_hippo.
And our TD, Alex Gumpel, can be found at ANELF3. If you want to find out what he and Cranky Hippo were like when they were kids, watch his feed. Because you get stuff like this.
You get to see that. I think more recently was our 70s cop show, detective show that we were going to make. We have a picture of that, I think.
Now, next week is actually our last episode of the year before we shut it down for the break. And
we got to take a break sooner or later.
But we do have to do one pre-recording next Friday because I'm going to be at CES in the new year. But you
Is it time for CES already?
Right? Where did the time go?
Oh, man.
But next week we will be covering the first flight. So we're actually going to take our quadcopters and show you how to take them to the sky.
Yes.
It'll be a fantastic, fun-filled episode of Know How. Until then, I'm Father Robert Balliser.
I'm Brian Burnett.
And now that you know how,
Go do it.